Farm Progress Broadcast presents This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry. Brought to you by Case IH, solutions for every challenge, equipment for every farm. Case IH, built by farmers.
Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us here for This Week in Agribusiness. I'm Mike Pearson. Summer, it's hard to believe, is half over, but a lot of us here in the studio are looking forward to something coming later on. Yes, the Farm Progress Show is coming up at the end of August, August 27th, 28th, and 29th. But before the Farm Progress Show gets started, the American Soybean Association will be hosting a farmer forum in Ankeny, looking at the reasons for building a conservation program for your farm. American Soybean Association President Josh Gackel joins me now for more details. Josh, thanks for taking the time to talk with us.
Thank you. Good to be with you. I'm joining you here from Washington, D.C. We just finished our American Soybean Association summer board meeting where we get together on our policy issues and spend some time on Capitol Hill talking to lawmakers. So glad I could join you from here.
Certainly a lot happening in the world of soybeans. And one of the things we've seen is a renewed focus on conservation. Josh, let's talk about this ASA Farmer Forum. Where and when is it going to be held?
So this is going to be outside of Boone, Iowa, near the Farm Progress Show in August, on Monday, August 26th in Ankeny, Iowa, at the FFA Center. The Building Your Conservation Program and Profit Potential that ASA is partnering with working with some of our other partners, the United Soybean Board, our Checkoff, PepsiCo, and also Nutrien. So three partners that we're working with to put this program together to share with farmers ideas, programs, implementation practices across a wide array of conservation practices and perhaps climate smart agriculture, carbon reduction strategies. There are just a number of things out there in that scope of conservation and that conservation work that programs, whether it's government programs or NGOs or some private companies as well, that are putting together programs where farmers can hopefully see some benefit, financial benefit, and of course conservation benefit on their farm. But they're scattered about and can be somewhat confusing in this early stage of the implementation of those programs. So this opportunity here to bring together farmers with conservationists, with some of our co-op experts and our agronomist experts and some private companies who can talk through those programs and just help farmers navigate what's out there.
And that navigation is so crucial. Josh, you said it best. There's a lot of programs out there. There's a lot of opportunities in 2024, but you've got to hunt to find them. So bringing that into one place should help growers find the assistance a little more easily. Now, my question to you is, I like to show up to things last minute. Josh, is there a reason I should register in advance for the American Soybean Association Farmer Forum?
Yeah, we sure would like to see some of those early registrations come in. One particular benefit, and one of the reasons we scheduled this around the Farm Progress Show in Boone, if you register by August 20th for this conservation program with ASA and our partners, so register by August 20th, go to our website, soygrowers.com. You can find a link there. A registration by August 20th would get you a free ticket entrance into the Farm Progress Show, or that, the next day or the day after. So just a great opportunity there. It's in the same area. They're close by. Start with our conservation program that we're putting on and go out and check out everything in Boone at the Farm Progress Show. But a good partnership there and a good opportunity to attract farmers to our program and then send them off to Farm Progress.
Absolutely. You're there to learn. Let's learn everything we can in the industry. Visit soygrowers.com for details on the American Soybean Association Farmer Forum, building a conservation plan for your farm. You can get the details there. ASA President Josh Gackel, thanks so much for joining us this week.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike. Good to be with you.
You too. There's always something new to see and do at the Farm Progress Show, and 2024 in Boone is no exception. Our friends at Kubota are building a test track inside their booth so you can experience test driving their RTVX side-by-side. Joining me now to talk about it is Jacob Mendoza. He's the Senior Manager for the RTV product line. Jacob, thanks for taking the time to talk with us.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here.
Let's talk first and foremost about the RTV that will be at the Farm Progress Show. Jacob, what's Kubota bringing to the table this year?
So we're going to have our brand new RTVX, which is basically an expansion and upgrade of our beloved X-Series platform. It's got the Kubota diesel engine, our Kubota-built hydrostat transmission, and the guiding principle for this new product was to bring it into the current age. It's got an exterior redesign, LED lighting. The aesthetics of the machine now match the performance, the durability, the quality of the machine. We've got some fresh new colors too, so people can be as excited about how the machine looks as they are about how it performs.
And that's what's cool. Most of the time at a farm show, you get to see how a thing looks. But Jacob, at the Kubota booth, booth 5048 this year, you're going to have a test track. We're going to see how these machines work in the field. Can you describe us a little bit about how that's going to work?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things we know is that experience is the best way to really buy into a product. You need to test it out for yourself, especially with side-by-sides. So we wanted to make sure we gave that opportunity to the farming consumers and the farmers that'll be attending the show. The whole inspiration behind the track was, how do we take a day's work and condense it into a demo experience so that the way that they're going to use the machine on the track is in line with how they would use it on the farm. And the track is structured in a way to deliver on just that.
What sort of things would we be experiencing on the track? You got some steep hills or mud?
We've got gravel, you've got dirt, you've got some bump tracks there as well. You've got cones so you can see the maneuverability of the machine. You've got inclines, declines, turns. So imagine how you would use a utility vehicle, on the property, getting out of tight spots, into tight spots, multiple terrains. The track is going to be structured to deliver on that. And then especially highlighting the suspension and performance while the machine is under load, because we all know if you've got a utility vehicle or a side-by-side, you're going to have stuff in the back, getting it from point A to point B.
Absolutely. So you will have the RTV there for folks to drive. Will there be just one? Do you expect a line, Jacob?
We're hoping that there is enough people coming that there'll be a line. I feel very confident in that. But what we did is we made sure to include enough units to move people through quickly. We don't want people to be in a position where they're waiting too long to get behind the wheel. So we'll be in a position where we're able to move people through quickly. We'll have 5 units out there for the demo track for people to come and experience.
Fantastic. It is going to be worth seeing. Jacob, if we've got viewers who want to learn more about Kubota's product offerings before the show, where would you recommend they visit?
Best place is going to be the Kubota website, KubotaUSA.com. Go check it out, explore. The great thing about how the website is structured is we've got different customer segments. And if you click into those pages, you can learn about our entire portfolio, because we've got ag, we've got hay tools, we've got compact utility tractors, mowers, and then my favorite, I am biased, but my favorite, our utility vehicle portfolio, and can learn more about what we bring to the table, and more importantly, how we provide solutions from our brand to help improve all of our consumers' lives.
It's all about making life better on the farm. Jacob Mendoza, Senior
right.
Product Manager at Kubota, thank you so much for talking with us this week. When we come back, we'll talk markets with Michael Reginelli of Advanced Trading, so leave it here. Today's larger, heavier equipment can lead to more soil compaction issues. Firestone Ag IFVF tires with 82 technology maximize load capacity while minimizing soil compaction. Visit firestoneag.com to learn more. And now it's time to turn to the markets. And we saw a sentiment shift, it would appear, this week in the corn and soybean markets. Joining me to discuss it is Michael Reginelli. He's Vice President and Commercial Broker with Advanced Trading. And Michael, thanks for talking with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It does seem as if we've finally found some maybe a little bullish attitude in the corn and soybean markets. Michael, what is happening this week? What changed?
It's taken a little while to get here, but it's good to see green on the screen a couple days in a row. D's corn's up 15 cents so far this week. Beans up 30 to 35 cents. Getting a little pop in oilseed products as well. So I think in general, we're coming off a few different things. The funds are running close to, if not record short, for the time of the year. There's some hot and dry weather stress potentially forecast as we work our way into August. I think that sentiment's creeping into the market a little bit. Monday, we saw crop conditions on corn slip just 1%, but for the second week in a row, coming off what are objectively very high levels, certainly compared to last year and the 5-year averages. So from a good to excellent condition standpoint, the corn and bean crop is still rated very strongly, but we are seeing corn ratings slide a little bit, concerns about weather. And then there's some global happenings too. There's some weather stress in parts of Northern Europe, parts of the Black Sea as well. I think when the funds get that short, it leaves the market susceptible to some short covering. And so I think all of that's bubbling up a little bit this week and giving prices a decent pop.
You know, Michael, I'm glad you mentioned the trouble brewing in the Black Sea region. We have seen this wheat crop, or this wheat market rather, continue to decline over the past 3 weeks. It seems to have stabilized. Is this, in your mind, due to maybe some global concerns with that Black Sea issue?
Yeah, I think so. If you look at some of the private estimates over there, the wheat production estimates have been sliding pretty aggressively for corn as well. But certainly in wheat, the Russian wheat crop's going to be under a lot of scrutiny as we kind of look forward here, just because they are such a major player when it comes to global wheat production and global wheat exports. So that's going to be, certainly something that the market's very sensitive to. And, it's not even just the Black Sea, though. If you go through parts of Europe, in France and Germany, too, which is going to be a little more soft wheat oriented as opposed to the hard wheat in Russia and the Black Sea, there's some crop quality and production concerns there as well. So, you have some major players on the production and export side facing some stress, and so the general thought in that when you look at the wheat market going up is that going to potentially bring some export business back to the U.S.? And we haven't really seen it develop in a big way yet, but that's what, we're going to be paying attention to.
Michael, are we starting to see any exports come back to the U.S. on either corn or soybeans as well as we look at this new crop developing?
That's a good question. It's certainly a concern for the bean market. If you look at China's purchases coming into this fall, they're as low as we've seen in a long, long time. So there's a lot of concern on the new crop bean export book as it stands at the moment. Corn sales are going to be watched pretty closely as well. We did get a flash sale from the USDA earlier this week for 200,000 metric tons to, quote unquote, unknown destinations. Most in the trade are thinking that's potentially China coming in. If China were to build up, a big corn program coming out of the U.S., certainly that could be that could bolster prices here longer term.
Absolutely. Add a little more strength to that third leg of the stool. Michael, you mentioned bean exports could be a concern. Given this rally that we've seen today or this past week, anything producers ought to be doing, at least on soybeans, to mitigate some risk?
Yeah, it seems like we are heading towards a pretty good crop in the U.S. So we did have we have a market pop here this week. Yield estimates are still pretty strong. The balance sheet, if you look at it from an ending stock standpoint, is expected to grow year on year. We have some demand concerns out there. I think there's a lot of undermarketed corn and soybeans, old crop and new crop here looking forward. It's a market that from a price ratio standpoint, even though we've dropped, we've seen 30 to 40 cents come back into the market this week. Feels like a good time to possibly be setting floors and looking to protect downside. And there's tools you can use to maybe maintain upside risk.
Absolutely. Manage that risk when the market gives us an opportunity, folks. That's Michael Reginelli, Vice President, Commercial Broker with Advanced Trading. And Michael, thanks for joining us this week.
Greg Solier now brings us his farm weather forecast for the week ahead.
Yes, indeed. It's been a hot one out west. Greg Solier, are those folks going to get any break from the heat in the coming week?
Outside of maybe a couple of thunderstorms up into parts of Big Sky Country, the southern Canadian prairie and across the Dakotas, that will tend to temper the heat. And boy, it was mighty tough on man and beast out towards Glasgow, Montana last week. 109-degree record-setting temperatures, not only there, but over a wide area of the Canadian Rockies, southern Canadian Rockies, the U.S. Rockies, and back into the Pacific Northwest. And these dry-based monsoon thunderstorms, 2 drops of rain, a dozen strokes of lightning, and you're off to the races with creating more fire and more smoke and ash in the atmosphere, setting up some brilliant sunsets, I'm sure, for the plains and western Corn Belt locales, but air quality is pretty tough. Still some very warm weather across the interior sections of the Northwest. A couple of thunderstorms on the ridge line out of Montana, the southern areas of the Canadian Prairie, and sliding east and southeast across sections of the Dakotas as the heat and humidity continues its eastward advance across the rest of the plains and into the Corn Belt locales. Yeah, the tropics have been pretty busy across the Pacific Basin, and a westward move on that, but they are throwing moisture northward into the southwestern states with, again, more of these dry base thunderstorms, or into parts of New Mexico, West Texas, some flash flooding. That's the story. The heat and humidity all the way up to about I-80, and a couple of thunderstorms there on northward, and maybe we bubble up in some of that monsoon moisture, a couple of thunderstorms and a gusty wind pattern into West Texas cotton. Triple-digit heat into parts of Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas on the western end of that drought area. Suspicious low pressure offshore of Baja throwing moisture on northward. Otherwise, it's a pretty typical mid to late July and early August weather pattern, Mike, across the west and southwest.
Taking a look at the central parts of the Corn Belt, Greg, any concerns for added heat next week?
Yes, exactly. You know, it's fair going season and tending the livestock. Long lines, I'm sure, at the beverage stand. And again, we still have this ring of fire, ridge-riding thunderstorms out of the Canadian Prairie. They downslope across that boundary across the Great Lakes region as temperatures push past the 90 and 95 degree mark. If you're even keeled of late in soil moisture and storms, accelerated crop growth and development, and hopefully most are moving through and out of the tasseling and pollination stage with the heat building into the western sections of the Corn Belt and back into the plains. Probably some triple-digit readings as far north as the Corn Palace, maybe to the Black Hills like last week on southward. Low to mid-90s spreading into the central and southern Corn Belt locales. Maybe a couple of thunderstorms, but the organized rains are beginning to wind down, come to an end across the Corn Belt locales. Again, a little weak system off of Baja. Thunderstorms in the Rio Grande Valley, West Texas cotton, heat and humidity all the way up into the Arklatex, and the flooding woes continue on into eastern Texas as well as Louisiana, coming off yesterday's, or at least last week's, I should say, showers and thunderstorms and drenching rains, of which they continue on along the western Gulf. Tropical rains in through sections of Mexico, West Texas cotton, and readings heading up past 100 as far north as the Ozarks and then some for later in the week.
Looking out to the eastern third of the country, Greg, any relief for those droughted growers in Virginia?
We had some last week, sections of Ohio as well, still in the worst of the dryness and drought on last week's drought monitor. So again, these ring of fire, ridge-riding thunderstorms out of the Canadian Prairie through the Great Lakes region, Ohio Valley, and they'll spread their way into the areas of the Northeast in New England. So some relief in these worst drought areas of the Mid-Atlantic region, low to mid-90s into the Mississippi Valley and probably upper 90s to near 100 closing in on the Mississippi River again later in the week with a couple of thunderstorms for the upper Great Lakes region, parts of the Northeast in New England, and high humidity and dew point values all the way into the Ohio Valley. Southeastern states we go, and boundaries stuck here, daytime heating, and the showers and thunderstorms provide some additional rainfall and drought relief for areas of the Carolinas and Mid-Atlantic region. More downpours of rain for parts of Texas, and the downpours too for Florida later in the week.
Closed captioning for This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Pentair Hypro, a global leader in innovative spray technology for farmers for over 75 years.
Welcome back to This Week in Agribusiness. Ladies and gentlemen, you know, looking at the national picture, politics has had an interesting 3 weeks. We saw former President Trump be the victim of an assassination attempt several weeks ago. President Joseph Biden has suspended his campaign for president in 2024, and it sounds as if Kamala Harris will likely be the next Democratic top of the ticket for that presidential election. All of these things could have an impact on agriculture, so joining us now to discuss them is Josh Bethke. He serves as the policy editor here at Farm Progress. And Josh, you have had a busy few weeks on your beat, haven't you?
Yeah, there's been a little bit of everything going on. You know, I think, over the past couple of weeks after the Biden debate debacle and then the assassination attempt, the general consensus was Trump was running away with this thing. Now this weekend with the president dropping out of his campaign for re-election and Kamala Harris apparently being the Democratic nominee, it's changed the dynamic completely. You see the polling now shows the race tightening. Some polls even show Harris slightly ahead. And, it's really changed the calculus for the Republican side. The Trump campaign had seemingly been, pushing a message that, Biden was too old for the job. He was declining mentally. That was obviously on display at the debate. Now the tables have turned a little bit. It's Donald Trump, who is the older candidate, would be the oldest president elected, or inaugurated if he wins. So it's kind of put everything on its head, and we're still trying to process what it all means. Yeah,
a 20-year age difference between Kamala Harris and former President Trump. That is a big one. My question, given that Biden has suspended or ended his campaign for president, Josh, we still have a remainder of the Biden term. Do you expect anything to change at USDA before November?
Not that I'm hearing at this point. It's going to be business as usual. The interesting thing is going to be to see how Kamala Harris as a candidate handles this, because she's got to walk a delicate balance between, she's still a member of the administration and, doesn't want to undercut the president, but at the same time, she's also going to be trying to differentiate herself, from Biden. But all indications are the job at USDA continues. Secretary Vilsack said, he's staying on. He said he still has work to do. So, we're going to have USDA continuing as it is for the remainder of the term, presumably, while we have this election going on in the background.
All right, Josh, now you mentioned Kamala Harris there. Of course, she is a prosecutor from California. Do we know much yet about what she thinks about agriculture broadly or who an ag team might be?
We're still trying to figure that out. I mean, right now, all we really have to go on is, her record as Attorney General in California and, her one term in Senate. She has taken some trade positions that are kind of in between Biden and Trump. For example, she opposed the Trans-Pacific Partnership as Trump did. Joe Biden supported that. But she was also against the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement, which the Trump administration helped draft. We know she presumably will support a lot of the climate initiatives that the Biden administration supports. And one interesting thing, you mentioned, her staff, her chief of staff actually has some experience running campaigns in Iowa, including a stint working for Tom Harkin. She's actually married to a man who was once the senior staff director for the Senate Ag Committee in the late 90s. So, I'm guessing that, the Harris team is going to, rely on their experts and unveil an ag policy, shortly.
Yeah, we'll be watching. It'll have to come fairly shortly. But now, Josh, of course, the betting markets do show a tight race should President Trump recapture the presidency in November at the USDA. Should we expect to see a number of familiar faces? Would Sonny Perdue come back, for example?
I think that's a definite no. I actually, got to speak with the former secretary a couple of weeks ago, and he's happily working as the chancellor of University System of Georgia, which oversees University of Georgia and 26 other universities. I think his quote was he'd rather stay married and go back to USDA. He had complimentary things to say about Trump. They apparently left on good terms, and he's proud of his record there. But at the same time, it doesn't sound like he's actively involved in any of the policy things going on these days. He said he would, take a call if Trump called him, but he's not necessarily expecting that to happen. So he's happily out of politics, I would say.
All right, Josh. Well, with that being said, I'm going to throw a question to you. Who do you think could be a contender for Secretary of Ag under the Trump administration? Have you heard anything under the covers?
I've heard so many rumors out there. It's hard to say. I don't think he's really publicized that. For a while, I'm from Texas. Our state agriculture commissioner Sid Miller was mentioned at one point. I haven't heard that in a while, and I honestly don't know if he's made a decision. I think the one thing we can bet on is whoever he picks will definitely be someone that is loyal to Trump, because from everything you're hearing, that's one of the key factors in determining everyone he's going to pick, for a potential cabinet.
Absolutely. All right, Josh. So presidential politics will continue until November. Farm bill politics seems as though it has been stalled here for 2 months. What are you hearing from Congress? Are we going to see any additional action on that before the November election?
If the odds could possibly get less, they probably have. Just yesterday we found out that the House is after Thursday. We'll be going on recess through August. Senate's scheduled to go on recess as well next week. And they're not coming back until September. And when they come back, we're going to have the same dynamic we basically had last year, where we're facing the government shutdown deadline at the end of the month. Congress has yet to pass a fiscal year budget for the next year. So that's going to probably take all the attention of Congress, avoiding the shutdown, drafting a budget. And then after that, we'll see what they do with the farm bill. The deadline is September 30th. The smart money, again, is on an extension. And an interesting thing, from what I'm hearing from a lot of people inside, it may not even happen early next year. We may be looking at another almost full year before anything happens. No good news on the farm bill. No good news. Well, thanks to Josh Baitke for the update, policy editor at Farm Progress. Josh, we appreciate you joining us. Always good to be here, Mike. Thanks a lot.
Farm Progress Broadcast presents This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry. Brought to you by Case IH. Solutions for every challenge. Equipment for every farm. Case IH. Built by farmers.
Welcome back to This Week in Agribusiness. Resilience on farms is crucial. We've got to be able to do the jobs that need done regardless of what's happening around us. Well, that's been the focus of a vineyard out in California. And joining me now for details is Mike Newland. He's the Director of Agribusiness Development at the Propane Education and Research Council. And Mike, you've been out in California working with Fisher Vineyards. Can you fill us in a little bit as to how they're using propane?
Yeah, we were out at Fisher's operations back in June. Really highlighting what they're doing currently with propane, but also showing off to the media folks that were able to join us what they've added to the vineyard. So the ways that they're currently using it are HVAC systems. They're running their boilers. They're running frost prevention fans during the growing season. Recently, because of wildfire pressure in the area, they added a 150 kW generator that runs on propane. That system and that facility just cannot go down. During the wildfire season, the power tends to be turned off to try to mitigate those instances. And Fisher was at risk, to be very honest. So they did install that. It's operating fantastically. They're able to run their entire facility off of that generator, and we wanted to highlight that fact. They did purchase the generator, and PERC did offer an incentive to them, which was another reason for us to highlight their operation and the success that it's having.
And I understand their operation also is the recipient of the Energy for Everyone Hero Award. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is?
It was. We highlighted them due to their commitment to sustainability. As everybody knows, I hope, that propane's an incredibly clean fuel. Fisher's is a Napa Green certified vineyard in the area, which is a big deal for them and has been for a number of years. Really just shows their commitment to sustainability, and we thought this was a great way to do that. We did give them our first ever Hero Award within the agriculture space. It was a fantastic event for us and for hopefully the Fishers as well.
After this whole summer of severe weather, a lot of folks might be looking at generators. Propane, how does it work in that environment?
Well, I think everybody on the farm knows us in the backup space for residential market. We also have portable generators that run on propane that you can throw in the back of a pickup truck and use if you need to. But I guess today I was really hoping to highlight maybe the big generators that protect our livestock buildings across the country. If folks are putting in a new finishing barn, have poultry operation, gosh, I think that generator really needs to be propane. We don't have fuel concerns, condition concerns like you do with diesel. The upfront cost is significantly less than the diesel with the emissions systems on them today, and I think it's just a better fuel for what that application really needs.
That makes a lot of sense. Use the best fuel source for the need you've got, and propane can fit that in a lot of different areas.
Absolutely, and if folks are looking to learn more about the fuel, about the equipment, I'd encourage them to go to propane.com and learn more about that.
Mike Newland, Director of Agriculture Business Development at PERC, thank you so much for joining us this week.
Thank you very much.
Greg Sodier is back now with his extended farm weather forecast for the nation.
Yes, Greg mentioned some rainfall potential this next week. Greg, who's going to see what and when?
Southern Canadian Prairie, the Dakotas, maybe parts of Big Sky Country, but more so into the upper Great Lakes region with a front stalled out, the jet stream overhead, and that hot ridge to the south and southwest. So the makings are there for some pretty good rainfall. And this time of the year, it is the severe weather corridor through the St. Lawrence River Valley, upper lakes region towards the Sioux, and westward from there, where we do get these hail and tornado producing thunderstorms, generally speaking. Tropical rains, but it's drought relief for the mid-Atlantic down through Florida, more tropical downpours and flooding into eastern Texas. Keep an eye on things, though. We're going to get into a very busy Atlantic Basin tropical season here shortly. Thunderstorms largely dry based in the southwest. That means more fire potential. Some spots, Mike, do pick up a quarter to a half inch of the Pacific Northwest and Northern Rockies, hopefully tempering some of the fires out there.
All right, Greg, the week of August 5th, what are you watching with that hot ridge?
That hot ridge is dominant. It's been fragmented. We actually have another piece here that's weakening in the southwest Atlantic. I know we don't portray it here, but it will be the mechanism that allows systems and the lack of Saharan dust to get some features going here in the weeks to come and days to come. Here is the core triple-digit heat that is across the plains and western through southern Corn Belt, low to mid-90s into the northeast of New England, up towards the Canadian Prairie, and west out through areas of California. The hot weather continues on. Looky here, this is a flood potential into old Mexico, parts of Texas, the southwestern states, monsoon moisture, and the this tropical feature here, and here comes the first in a string of these systems out of the southwest Atlantic. So the wet weather pattern is for the Delta, the eastern states, drought relief there into the northeast of New England, normal to below and expanding there across the Corn Belt.
As we get into mid-August, Greg, do you notice any changes with that hot dome?
It is tough to completely break down the upper air pattern in this point in summertime unless you are going to get a system that rides up the eastern seaboard. Typically in September, that usually dislodges cold air. We do have a little low but cooling for the northeast of New England. The hot ridge is still firmly parked, low to mid 90s, the hotter spots upper 90s to near 100. I know we're late in the season, but still capable of this upper air pattern of generating that kind of heat, and the heat across the western states as well. Note the expansion of dry weather out of California, a little more normalized setup for monsoon moisture in the southwestern part of the country. The next system coming into frame here off the Atlantic basin, tropical rains, maybe a system of named features, and up and down the eastern seaboard, the wet weather pattern continues on too. And good news for the Canadian prairie, not so good news, the increasing dryness again over the western Corn Belt back in the plains.
Greg, that heat dome, last full week of August, what's it doing then?
Still firmly ensconced across the middle part of the country, and yeah, going to be a hot one to say the least out there at Boone, Iowa, with readings maybe in the mid to upper 90s. We're going to anticipate from this vantage point, the low to mid 90s to the Lakes region, triple digit into areas west of the Missouri, back in the southwestern parts of the country as well. A little lobe of cool air into the northeast and New England. And from a moisture standpoint, 1, 2, 3 systems, 2 in the Atlantic and more probably coming off the African coast, 1 across the Pacific. And look at the wet weather across the southern states with expanding dryness and drought too for parts of the Corn Belt.
Our Farm Progress Roundup is sponsored by Brandt Industries. Lead the field with Brandt's lineup of heavy-duty grain carts and make the most of your harvest season. Visit brandt.ca for more. We're going to check in with Matt Youngman. He's the National Events Manager here at Farm Progress. He's working on that Farm Progress show coming August 27th, 28th, and 29th. Matt, thanks for talking with us this week.
Good to be with you, Mike.
Let's get an update on that corn crop at Boone. How are things shaping up?
Everything looks fantastic. I had some pictures texted to me yesterday, and it is beautiful. It was all in the ground by April 12th, and it's obviously had good moisture and good heat, and everything's cranking along, actually starting to dent a little bit. And so we're right on schedule to run some great demos at this year's show.
And Matt, the field demos, every Farm Progress show are fantastic. But this year, to get that corn out of the field, I understand we're going to have a lot of help in the field demos this year. How many combines are going to be running?
By the time you get all the OEMs, meaning all the combine manufacturers, and then the head companies and the folks that have combine attachments, it's about 15 combines that are going to run in front of the crowd. So pretty easy to wipe out 80 acres a day, and everybody will get a couple passes in front of the crowd, and should be a great show as long as Mother Nature agrees with us on show days.
Absolutely. So we've got the combines getting that corn out, of course, running alongside with them. We'll see some grain carts, right? A lot of different technology for moving that grain.
That's exactly right. 7 or 8 grain carts will help store that so that we can get it trucked out and move on to the next day. But yeah, great new technology in terms of, tracks and tires and right side augers and a lot of new things happening in the auger cart area.
Boy, and then tillage. Once that corn's out, we got to get the field ready for next year. Matt, are we going to have some tillage tools on display?
Most certainly. Typically, we end up with about 40 tillage tools, everything from, deep subsoil rippers to vertical till and about everything else you can imagine, and couple that with a lot of the specialty things. It's a big show there in the afternoon. We'll harvest the crop in the morning at 11 o'clock and then turn around in the exact same field and run all those tillage tools over it to get it ready for next year's crop.
At this time of year, Matt, as I travel, I see a lot of crop dusters flying in the air, zooming over these fields. It'd be neat to see one of those up close. Any chances for that at the Farm Progress show?
Absolutely. All those yellow airplanes were made by a company called Air Tractor. And so for the first time, we have Air Tractor as an exhibitor. And, the mechanics of getting an airplane into the show site is kind of fun. The behind the scenes look at that is we're going to land it out in the parking lot and then tear down some fence around the show site, pull it into the show site, into their exhibit space, and then patch the fence back together. And then we'll reverse the operation after the show. So if you're around Boone before the show here next week or so, keep your eye out for one of those crop dusters putting down in the parking lot on the north side of the show site.
That's right. And so that's for Farm Progress Show, Matt. Husker Harvest Days 2 weeks after that in Grand Island, Nebraska. How are things looking out west?
Looking great. I was just there this week. The crop is in fantastic shape. Everything. We've got a new cover crop plot inside the fence with dozens of crop mixes. But the big news for Husker Harvest Days is the new admission program that we're unveiling. Complimentary admission if you register. And so we look forward to giving everybody a great new opportunity to attend the show.
Lots of opportunities at Husker and at the Farm Progress Show. Matt Youngman, National Events Director, thanks for joining us.
Great to be with you. Thank you, Mike.
Next on This Week in Agribusiness, it's Max's Tractor Shed, where we spotlight another great American farm tractor. In the Tractor Shed this weekend, the story of a prototype tractor that survived. Not all do. Max's Tractor Shed is brought to you by Mystic Lubricants. Mystic Lubricants are made to make it last. Well, prototype tractors sometimes don't make it out to see the light of day. We've heard stories over the years about tractors maybe that were going to be introduced to the farmers and it just didn't work out. Sometimes they were sent to the scrapyard. Company executives said, we don't want to see anything of those. That was not the case, though, with this JI Case 970 that came out of the plant in Racine, Wisconsin in 1969. John Thurer at Paris, Tennessee owns this tractor. Over a period of 9 years, JI Case rolled out of Racine, Wisconsin, these 70 series models. There was the 770, the 870, the 970 that you see here, and the 1070. And these came a little bit ahead of the 1570, that Spirit of 76 tractor that came along with the bicentennial year. 50-gallon fuel tank on the 970. The promotional material said it lasts all day. This tractor, though, did burn in a fire somewhere along the way. But you can see it not only survived being a prototype, it survived the fire and looks mighty fine. Mark Stock is here with us now with Big Iron Auctions with his weekly report.
Well, hello, Max. The auctions in July continue on BigIron.com. And what's interesting is more than 72% of all bids received on Big Iron come from a smartphone or a mobile device. And people are buying late model equipment like the items that will sell on the LSR Farms LLC auction, like the 2021 year model John Deere 8RX 410 quad track tractor with only 847 hours. Plus a low-hourred 2021 John Deere S780 Hillco side hill four-wheel drive combine. On August 1st, Lauren Polson will have their sale, items by Coleridge, Nebraska. A 1979 John Deere 4440 tractor with only 3,922 hours. 2022 John Deere X9 1100 combine. John Deere 9900i self-propelled forage harvester. At Max, on August the 2nd, Yeager Farms is retiring. They're by Goodwin, South Dakota. They have 40 items selling. John Deere 9520 four-wheel drive tractor. A John Deere S680 four-wheel drive combine. 2008 Peterbilt 367 day cab semi-truck tractor. Max, we continue to schedule auctions for the remainder of 2024 and into 2025. Call today to sell on Big Iron and Sullivan Auctioneers.
Our FFA Chapter Tribute is brought to you by Pioneer, developing new generations of seed innovations for new generations of farmers. Pioneer, what's next happens here. We've been getting to know the members of the Chillicothe FFA from Chillicothe, Missouri, and this week we're talking with Sadie Birch. She's an incoming senior, and Sadie, thank you for talking with us.
Of course.
Tell us, what was it that made you want to join FFA?
My brothers both were in FFA, and all of my family has been involved in agriculture. So it's just been a really big part of my life, and I wanted to join that.
So you got involved, and I understand you've gotten very involved in leadership. Sadie, can you tell us a little bit about the different officer roles you've held over your term?
My sophomore year, our school does assistant officers and junior officers. So sophomore year, I was assistant officer, and then junior and senior year, I have been chapter officers.
And what have you enjoyed about leadership and the chance to serve your chapter?
I really just enjoy getting to know everybody and getting to have extra opportunities and extra experiences. And I know it'll be good for future jobs and that stuff.
Absolutely. Everybody loves somebody who's well-rounded as an individual. Speaking of the future, Sadie, what are your future plans? Do you hope to stay in rural America?
Yes, I hope to move back to Chillicothe and continue advocating for agriculture but I do not plan on going into agriculture. I have a deep passion for children and want to be a special education preschool teacher.
Well, that's fantastic. We certainly need a lot of help making sure our young minds are well cared for. Sadie Birch, Chillicothe FFA incoming senior, thank you so much for talking with us today.
Thank you.
Colby Ag Tech is brought to you by Copperhead Ag Products. Visit copperheadag.com for more information. Many times when we start talking weed management, we start talking chemistries. But Chad Colby joins us this week to remind us that sometimes all we need is juice.
It's definitely not uncommon this time of year to see some real problems in some soybean fields. Honestly, it was that way when I was a kid, but there's better options than walking those fields, that's what I can tell you. On this week's tech segment, I caught up with our friend Matt Foes from Northern Illinois. Matt's an accomplished agronomist and a farmer, and he's got a different way to attack these problem areas that's incredibly effective.
Being a non-GMO soybean grower, I fight the same weed problems, giant ragweed and water hemp, but I don't have as many options post-emergence. So I have to look around me to some of the options that other people in organics are using, and they're using a weed zapper to electrocute the weeds. So this giant ragweed here, 15-20 minutes ago, was 5 feet tall and now is wilting down after one pass with the weed zapper. It's very effective.
I see here you've got yours on a 300 horse tractor. It does take some horsepower to run the generator and run the system. Talk a little bit about how that works.
Yeah, so a 300 horsepower on a 30-footer, probably a little more than necessary, but I wouldn't want to go less than 240. Large generator and transformer in the box on the back, and then a lead running up to a 3-point that comes with the kit to go on the weight bracket in the front. You simply go across the field and use the hydraulic center link to adjust the copper tubing on the front to be above the beans and hit the weeds that you pass.
Matt, you've noticed some of your neighbors using this technology over the last several years. One thing you and I were talking about was even speed. If you're in a heavy weed pressure area, slow down, it's going to be even more effective. Talk a little bit about what you've learned so far with this machine.
Yeah, so if you're in heavy weed pressure, slowing down to that 1.5 to 2.5 miles an hour at the tops, let time go so that the arc can go through each individual weed and take a little pressure off the generator at the same time. When you're in lighter weed pressure, 3.5 miles an hour is no problem. Think of it similar to running a 12-row combine across the field, 3.5 miles an hour, 80 to 100 acres a day, no problem.
Well, the interesting part about this technology is it's extremely effective. For This Week in Agribusiness, I'm Chad Colby.
Thank you, Chad, for that update. And folks, leave it here. We'll have more This Week in Agribusiness coming up after this. Nutrien Ag Solutions has crop consultants watching out for the agronomy for your acres all across the country. And those consultants are backed by a team of meteorologists. We're talking with Andrew Pritchard today. He's a senior meteorologist with Nutrien Ag Solutions. And Andrew, thanks for joining us.
I'm happy to be here.
Tell us a little bit about the team that worked there for Nutrien.
Absolutely. Yeah, I am just one out of a team of 5 atmospheric scientists on staff here at Nutrien Ag Solutions. And we're all kind of bringing our unique talents to the table to support our crop consultants and our farmers out in the field. My particular specialty happens to be severe and high impact weather. So when the weather is causing problems from the US up into Canada, I am very busy providing alerts ahead of time to try and warn people that we've got bad weather coming in later in the day and they need to kind of plan their operations around that. I help with the response on the back end as well. And of course, we're a big retail company with a lot of these facilities spread out. So we just want to make sure that people are taken care of, though. They know bad weather is coming, and then they've got support when those storms move on out. Now, again, I mentioned I'm just one of 5. Eric Snodgrass is a well-known name in ag weather, and he's great at trying to pick out where the pattern is going the next few weeks. We've got other meteorologists on staff who are great at the bigger climate picture, and then we have programmers and data scientists who are helping kind of work behind the scenes and develop these weather models that we use to help build our forecasts here. So we're doing everything from just warning people, giving them those weather forecasts, to creating tools that they can take into the field to help, best position their farmers there to weather what's coming.
Well, that's fantastic. Now, Andrew, it has been an active weather season, certainly severe weather-wise. As you look forward, are there any trends your team is keeping an eye on right now?
Yeah, when I think about this past growing season, really going back to the flip of the calendar here to 2024, I were to really summarize things, it's been very active, a lot of flow in the jet stream. When the jet stream is moving fast, we get storm systems and a lot of precipitation. So that is different compared to the last couple of years here. So as I mentioned, we came into January and February. We brought a lot of Pacific moisture into the western U.S. California got a lot of badly needed moisture here as they went through their wet season. And then the hope and what we saw happen here was that pattern would continue as we got into the spring. So that meant kind of, navigating some trouble here with the farmers as they started to get into the spring planting season. We had some early warmth. So, folks had to kind of consider if they wanted to take advantage of that and risk a late season frost event. And then as we got deeper into April and May, that storm track really ramped up. And so it became, trying to get the planting done between storms. We had a lot of rain, some areas that were dealing with a lot of flooding. And then, of course, late April, May, and June, there was, a lot of severe weather coming with those storm systems as well. So it was good that we got the moisture here, but of course, that meant kind of navigating that planting season there and then dealing with some areas where we just had too much moisture. But as we've come into the summer now, benefiting from that moisture, as I drive across parts of Iowa, Illinois, and Indiana, the crops in a lot of areas look very good. You can really see the benefit from a lot of moisture and a lot of heat this summer. It's really been a beneficial growing season. So we hope to see that continue here as we head through the rest of the growing season.
We certainly do. Lots to watch when it comes to weather forecasting. Andrew Pritchard, Senior Meteorologist with Nutrien Ag Solutions. Thanks for joining us this week. You can learn more online at nutrienagsolutions.com or visit them on YouTube for daily weather updates. Thanks so much for making us a part of your day today. Be sure to catch us next time right here for This Week in Agribusiness.
This Week in Agribusiness has been brought to you by Case IH. Solutions for every challenge. Equipment for every farm. Case IH, built by farmers. This Week in Agribusiness is produced by 22 Creative Group and has been a presentation of Farm Progress Broadcast. We invite you to visit us online at agbizweek.com.